Hello. I'm so sorry about that if you've been sitting waiting for me. Yeah, that didn't go as planned, as you can tell. But now we're up and running, I think. Yeah, nice. I just have to send this to the group. Okay. I should also delete the other one. Yeah, so just while I'm doing this, let's see if I can multitask and at the same time do advertisements while I delete a video off YouTube. Yeah, if you want to uh, if you want to come to an event that I'm doing, the next event I'm doing, I think is the 17th of February. And and uh that is with Circle something, but you can find that on my website. I've forgotten the name of it. Circle something. And you can join that on the website. It's with an outside source, it's by donation. Yeah, that will be nice. And then the next event after that is for Easter, which is a conference, a 7-day conference in Germany. You can also sign up for that. And then I've added another retreat, a walking retreat in October in the south of Europe. And that's walking. It's an hour and a half walking in the mountains every day. You don't have to do the walking. There's still talks with me and there's body work as well. But if you want to, then that's an option as well. And it will be partially silent most days, the retreat, till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then there might be one day in the middle full of silence as well. Yeah. So all the events that I do now, you mostly have to identify yourself before we'll give you the address for anything for obvious reasons. Yeah, so I know that can be a bit of a put off. Amelia, who does all the organization, is happy to refund you. Only way we can think to get people to identify who they are is by paying for something. So either paying for the event or donating prior money, and then we refund you the money, or if you then book, then it can be taken off the booking. Yeah, that's the way it is. I hope you understand. But if you go to the events and you're like, but it doesn't say where it is, which is a little confusing, then that is the reason that it doesn't say where it is. And anyone that's joining now and has just been searching for me on YouTube and waiting for me on YouTube, I so apologize. I just had a massive crash of the system and I couldn't get it up and working again. Yeah, there is problems with my technology at the moment, with my software. And I don't really like using Zoom because I don't like the controls for it. But at the moment, Zoom is the only thing that works. So I really apologize if you're sitting there waiting for me for 25 minutes. I was in the background busily trying to work it out because then Zoom wouldn't connect, etc. You know the beeswax. It goes on and on. Oh, and there's also book clubs available at the moment. So every week I do these book clubs where I'm studying either Nisargadatta's book or Papaji's book. And it's so amazing. I really love doing it. I haven't read their books in years, and I don't think I ever read them, either of them, all the way through. And it's just really amazing studying them with a group of 6 people. So it's maximum 6 people every week. Yeah, and it's continuous. So we're now at like page 100 or something in Nisargadatta's book. And we've been doing, this is like the 4th group on this book. So we do very little each session, but new people can join every 10 weeks and old people can drop out. Like, so it can be a shift over of people, but we just carry on from where we started off. It's the same thing, the whole book. Same, but different, just put in different ways. So it doesn't matter if you join halfway through. So you can also find that on my website or linked below. Yes. And that is all. So we can begin with the talk. Yes. Okay. So the talk is, how do I break the habit of excessive thinking? I think, yeah, how do I break the habit of excessive thinking? Yes, how to. How to. So first up, I'm going to give an interpretation from non-duality's perspective as to why excessive thinking happens. Um, and yeah, and then from that, we'll explore the subject. Yeah, please comment. Yeah, please comment if there's problems with the sounds or anything in the questions channel. And if you want to ask questions in the live stream, you can ask questions at any time. You just send a question. And I'm not sure if I will take phone-ins, call-ins. So you can just write the question. And if you really want to call in, just put call me and I might call you through Telegram. Yeah, and if you want to join the Telegram group, you can find out on my website. It's very simple how to do that. Okay. So at a very young age, maybe prior to actually being born, maybe in previous lives, something begins called a separate self. And this separate self is a belief that you exist. And it's a mental functioning that happens simultaneously with the ability to have complex language. I doubt that this happens without complex language. I doubt that separation is happening in animals. I know that in Buddhism and Hinduism, the animals are like the lowest life form, and you've got to overcome being an animal. And if you do badly in this life, then you're going to be reborn as a dung beetle. And I don't mean to seem like some narcissistic folk that's like, no, that's a load of bull crap. You can't get reborn as a dung beetle because they're on a lower spectrum than humanity. I don't mean to go against millions of years of religion that have created these stories. But I tend to be a bit unromantic like that in my teaching. Although I do believe in past lives, but not in past lives like we imagine it. But I don't believe that animals are on a lower sphere than us because I think it's way more impersonal than that. Like who would be somebody that would be reborn into an animal? I see past lives of habits and conditions that are passed on through humanity. Yeah. But anyway, that's a really complex subject that we don't need to go into now. But anyway, back to what I was saying, at some point, humans developed separation. I suspect it developed slowly through the use of language. As soon as we started using language, yes, yes. For all those people attempting to fall asleep during the talk, Alicia is here to wake you up. Oh, 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 oh. Yeah. So yes. So there is I don't know if you can hear what's going on. So there is an identification with language. As soon as language forms, there is a somebody that is in relationship with somebody else or something else. So it forms, and it's like, we can't say the river unless we have a point, a perspective in which we're speaking about it from. So the river is something in time and space. It's like the river. Maybe if we just name things a bit impersonally like that, it's easier, but it's normally like, I'm walking to the river. And who is this I? As soon as, like, can you imagine like cave people when they started to speak, they're like, I'm going to the river. And then they're suddenly confused. Oh, me? And then they've got to make up a me. Whereas Khaleesi, this is the dog that was, she can't imagine who she is. She can't think, I'm going to the river. There is just going to the river happening. Whereas humans begin this language, I'm going to the river, and then there becomes by default an I, me, I'm going to the river. And then as soon as you start speaking about that, then you're like, well, who is this I? And then the stories begin. Well, let me tell you who this I is. I'm a very nice person. I always share my food. I have never been a carnivore in my a cannibalist in my life. I would like to be your friend. I will not eat you when we're around the fire pit. So there goes the storytelling. As soon as we speak, we need a fundamental object in which objects are relating to. And then we forgot who we were. Humans forgot. Because who we are is not in language. How many times have you heard a speaker say that? Who we are is not in language. It was there prior to what we speak. So obviously it cannot be spoken about. It's there beyond language. It's there prior to language. It's there without language. It's there when you bumped your head and forgotten everything, when you can't speak, when you can't think, before birth, after death. It's there. It is there. So humans develop this language, and then there becomes a fixation on this language because we then try to be something. It becomes part of our survival. We sit around the campfire and we try to be the best human. We try to be the nicest human. We try to be the most lovable human. We try to be a human. So then this seeking for pleasure and avoiding pain starts. So then in Storyland, in this made up story of you, me, you then try to be better than me. You try to be better than me in a story. And you sit around the campfire and you passively aggressively play with each other, trying to convince each other that you are better, or that you're more victim, or whatever you value as higher. You are more kind. You are more this, you are more that. And even if you haven't got human counterparts to do that, if you're solo in the wood with no other humans, you'll begin to do it with the trees, with the ground, with the weather, with anything you can get your hands on. You'll be in relationship with the weather. Oh, blimey. You know what the wind did to me the other day? It blew off my hat and I had a whole cold head. Did you know? Oh, I did. So it's storytelling. We get lost in storytelling and we get so lost in the story of who we are, so convinced by it, that we forget who we truly are. And who we truly are is so incredibly simple because it's been what you've always been, obviously. So what is it in experiencing that you always are? My body. Well, one could beg to differ. Are you really always your body? And this is like where it becomes incredibly personal and non-personal, meaning it's then a journey inwards to discover that. Like, that's not something I can teach you. I can't tell you who you are because you are who you are. So what is it that's always here in every circumstance? Now, when we have forgotten who we are, which is most of humanity, and believe that we are a story, you can understand why excessive thinking happens. That is understandable because you're constantly in thinking. You're constantly in that area of the brain which is telling a story of you. So then there is excessive thinking, and also everything's become about you. If you're not always experiencing pleasure, then that means there's something wrong with you. If you are not a happy you, that means there's something wrong with you. If you're not better than your neighbor, that means there's something wrong with you. So this seeking for pleasure becomes so exacerbated. Everything becomes about you, me. I must become something. I must grow this person into a super person. I must be the hero of the story. So there is always this encouragement of thinking, of imagining. So rather than just being who you are, which is this moment, no thing and everything, total emptiness. Isn't that amazing? We are empty. Rather than being that, we are just lost. Our mind is on overdrive of thinking, trying to be the best version of you and trying to get as much pleasure as can and avoid pain. Because it believes that pleasure will bring you home, will bring you back to yourself, but pleasure will never bring you back to yourself. You will only find yourself here in this moment beyond pleasure and pain. Yeah. Yes. So excessive thinking happens because of a false identification with storytelling of you, that there is a you in relationship to the other. Yeah. So the only way out of that is remembering who you are. You know, I'm a fan of therapy, of working in yourself, of understanding yourself, of going really deep into the character and the stories that you tell yourself, because the stories become ingrained in the body, in the movements, in the behavior, in the habits and the conditions. So I think it's beautiful to go in and explore that. And I think that's part of the process. But that is another story in the end. So this is going beyond stories in every moment. So what is here that is beyond stories? What might happen in the beginning phases or intermediate phases, depending on how you look at it, or very far advanced phases, is moving the attention, the personal awareness into itself or into the present moment. So coming back to the present moment. But then at some point, the present moment will just become evident without the person doing anything. And there will be a shift from a person experiencing to nothing experiencing. And the true nature of everything is absolute emptiness, nothing, not a thing. And what's so beautiful about this message is it's without any bounds. It's freedom in every experience. It really is. So it's not talking about sorting out the flow of life or the flow of life looking a particular way. It's really an absolute surrender to everything that's happening in the flow. It's really freedom in Auschwitz, in prison, in an abusive relationship, in very stressful life situations, death of family members. It's really freedom in all of that. Sometimes in spirituality, there's an idea that if you're enlightened or awakened, then you only have perfect life circumstances. I personally don't believe that. I feel that life is a movement of good and bad. It has to be of opposites. To me, that's the way it seems. So there will be good things that happen and bad things that happen. And when you come to see who you truly are, then in a way, from the perspective of who you truly are, there is no good and bad. But yet seemingly good or bad things happen in the flow of things. So it could be a death of a family member or looking after a family member when they're dying. And it's all free. So it's not about events. The spiritual community love to compete about that. Like who's manifested the best? If you've not manifested something good, then you can't be liberated. Well, that's part of my karma. I'm wearing down my karma by manifesting this. And all of that has got relevance and some level of truth, and then it's all bullshit. In the end, freedom is here, and life is a dance of colors. And sometimes those colors go in favor of the person and sometimes they don't. And in the end, the person is not going to win. Life is going to consume these bodies. And freedom is really a surrender to this moment, beyond experiencing. And who you are is totally empty and full simultaneously. And we could say consciousness if that's how you feel or that's what you relate to, but the consciousness, like some people call it a bridge, like it's a bridge between the emptiness and the fullness. But the consciousness is not a thing, it's totally empty. If you see consciousness as a thing, then you're missing it. It's not something you can recognize. But it's a great pointer to say consciousness. Yeah, I read this really beautiful quote by Amoda Maya. Sorry, not very good with names. And it was just so beautiful. It was like, in every moment, they're giving everything to him, everything to God, everything. It's like everything is of a service of that. This is, in a way, when speaking like that, it's like it becomes like a practice for the person until it's seen as not a practice. Like there can't be a practice for the person, but it's like it's this energy of, in every moment action happens, and that is God. It's like giving it to God. Like everything you do, everything the other does is the divine. And it's this constant recognition of this, remembering of this. But it's not like an imagined story remembering this, because then that's back in the story of you. It's so complex to speak about. Just as a side note, excessive thinking could actually also be a dysfunction of the brain. Like there could be like OCD, or you could have had a brain injury or something, or there could be mental health issues, and that could be excessive thinking. So, and that's something different. That's like the brain is misfiring and not working properly. But I'm speaking in those cases where that's not evident. I mean, for sure, people that have all of that and then are identified, the excessive thinking is exacerbated by identification, but it can also be a form of brain injury or mental health issues. Yeah, just to make that clear that it's not always the case that excessive thinking is coming because of identification. Yeah, yeah. So freaking relaxing and beautiful. This subject. It's really the only freedom. You won't find freedom in fixing yourself. This is a never-ending story. It will relax you to do therapy and fix yourself, but that tension that you feel, where you feel like you can't quite relax, that that is seeking, the separation. But you can get yourself into a really good space, you know, doing yoga and body work and understanding like why you're enacting certain things. This can get you into a really good space, but you'll always feel like a slight tension. And that's the seeking. That's the identification with the false self. When you're identified with the false self, you never quite feel like you're at home. You know, you're always, where is home? You're always feeling like you're out of home. This is home right here. Mind is where? You know, it's always got that agitation. Through understanding yourself, that will relax more and more and more. Like you know, when you're really unconscious, it's just so much seeking and so much thought processing and ideas and future thinking and avoidance and this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem, they're the problem, I'm the problem, he's the problem, she's the problem, the dog's the problem, the carpet's the problem, the gas heating's the problem, the world's the problem, the climate change's the problem. You know, it's never ending. The problem is separation. Even a lot of our social issues are to do with separation and self-hatred. Okay, so let's go some questions. So JJT as the first question. JJT. Yes, if you want to join the Telegram group, you can find out on my website under live streaming or YouTube channel. You have to identify yourself. I'm not doing events anymore without people identifying themselves. That's for life. Once you're in my system, though, you are identified. You have to identify by paying something, which we can also refund. Like, this isn't a money grab. This is a safety grab from inappropriate people on the internet. She's enlightened. Why does she need to protect herself? If she was truly enlightened, she'd have an aura around herself that blasts everyone with light and everyone would be nice to her. My God. Yes, of course, that's the way it is. JJT, hello. One question here that you can answer if it fits your teaching flow today. Oh, thank you, JJT. It might not fit, you're right. Who knows what's going to come out, eh? Early days, many teachers seem to transmit expansions and the teaching content seemed to be inspiring. Nowadays, less and less. All seem to be slightly or misaligned some way for me. Is this a process and in the end only one own enlightened true nature seems to be the one that feels truly aligned and only one that one truly wants to follow? My God, let me just read that sentence again. You might have needed a comma in there just for helping. Is this a process and in the end only one's own enlightened nature seems to be the one that feels truly aligned and only that one true. Come on, JJT. Okay, I'll try again. Is this a process and in the end only one's own enlightened nature seems to be the one that feels truly aligned and only one that one truly wants to follow? I can't, I can't do that. That's a complex question. Second question. How do you experience other teachers nowadays, and is interaction and energetics with them different than those who are still seeking? I just suddenly had a thought that English might not be your first language, and if it is, I'm so sorry for laughing about that question, because I understand as having a second sort of language that it's really freaking complex speaking another language, but it seems really good English. But it's just incredibly complex sentence that could help with some commas, or maybe you need to make it a bit bigger, you know, a bit more spread out. I can't do that question. I'm sorry. It's just too complex. Yeah, I laughed because I projected onto you that English was your first language because your English seems perfect. Yeah. I was laughing because it's like my brain was like, you what, love? Okay, so we'll just go to the second question. Second question, how do you experience other teachers nowadays, and is interaction and energetics with them different than those who are still seeking? Okay, so I get the sense that it's talking about trust of teachers and the energy in which they transmit. Yeah. And the older teachers, you feel like there was more transmission. Like, how far are we going back? Are we going back to the ones that we never saw on TV or anything, but only ever read in a book? Or are we just going back like to Nisargadatta Maharaj or Papaji or something? Um, so yeah. Um, Other teachers. Come on, Lisa, get inspired. Yeah, I really feel the urge to speak about other teachers so much. I think because one thing that I've realized that happens in cults and in speakers is there is an implication always that my teaching is more supreme than other teachers. And that often is an occurrence, which is wholly disappointing to me. And I feel like when you really open your heart, everything is your teacher. And that includes false teachers. You know, the pebble on the road, the cars, the sunlight, the dog shit, the teachers that think they know what they're talking about and don't, the teachers that are transmitting but nobody listens to them because nobody sees it or gets it. The teachers that are halfway, you know, it's yeah. I mean, I sometimes feel that there is a big wave of teachers coming through that haven't had an energetic awakening. So they've seen non-duality. So there's a recognition of it, but they haven't had an energetic shift. But it doesn't freaking matter, you know? If your heart's truly open and committed to the subject, that's the most important thing. You know, it's not looking out and being like, oh, are they good enough? And oh, I need this teacher or that teacher. It's focusing on your heart, like, what is it I want here? And if it's freedom that you truly want, not I'm better than them or they're worse than me. If it's freedom you truly want, then that's what will happen. You know, if there's true investigation, then the cart follows the ox. Sorry, that's an old Buddhist saying. It never sounds wise when I say it, but when the Buddhists and the old books say it, it's like, and the cart follows the ox, and everyone's like, oh yeah. When I say it, never really works. But it's like, as soon as you start asking the who are you, truly, truly asking who are you, then freedom will entail. It's impossible for it not to. So I just wouldn't trust so much that line of thinking. Obviously, educate yourself on psychology so you don't end up getting yourself in abuse situations. But that's the same with the whole of freaking life, not just non-duality. So educate yourself on behavior, psychology, how to differentiate between someone being appropriate and not appropriate when teachings are trustworthy and untrustworthy. But then it's like going in, and it doesn't matter what the teacher is or isn't. Who am I? What is experiencing now? It's often another defense of the mind. You know, this teacher's wrong, this teacher's abusing me. That's appropriate to think about in order to become well differentiated, well defined, you know, so a well defined, healthy human being characteristic. But, you know, for the mind to keep looking in that, it's often competition. You know, you watch teachers and you're in competition with them, so then it makes you feel insecure. So then the competition arises, and then that story is believed. So just keep coming back to you. If you feel from a differentiated point of view that that person's not right for you and not resonating with you, then don't even look. Just go to the teachers where it does resonate, and boom, boom, boom. And if it was Papaji and the older teachers, then just listen to them. It doesn't freaking matter what everyone else is doing. You know, you find what resonates with your heart, you know, what gives you that sense of expansion. And all this other, like, they're not right. It's like, okay, that's important to define that they're not appropriate for you, but then leave it. Put it down. What's that old Buddhist story? I find the story so simplistically, stupidly, funnily great. So, yeah, there's two Buddhist monks, and they're on the side of the river, and there is a woman drowning, or on the other side of the road, the other side of the river. I can't remember. We'll just give it drowning, just to give it a bit more voom. So there's this woman drowning. So one of the Buddhist monks goes in and takes her out of the water, and picks her up and puts her on the shore, and she's like, oh, thank you very much, thank you. And then as they're walking away, the Buddhist monk that didn't rescue the woman goes, I can't believe you did that. You know, you're not allowed to touch women. You're not allowed to talk to women. You know, that's part of your vows, are not to speak or help women. And he's like, I can't believe you picked her up. And then the other monk goes, I can't believe you're still holding on to her. Yeah. I think I might not have told that story correctly, but you get the picture. But it is sort of like a very simplistic story, but I still might have modeled it around in my brain. But the point is like, who cares? Like, really honestly ask yourself that. Who cares? What does, you know, who cares about all these teachers? And if there's ones that you feel like you do resonate with, go for it. Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, the flow did do that. Don O'Connor. I hear people say things like, don't resist the resistance, or don't push or pull. Oh, sorry, I've just been told the correct ending of that story. I put her down an hour ago. You're the one still carrying her. Sorry, I did mess up the ending. I remember when I used to go to Tony Parsons talks when I used to live in London. This is 20 years ago or something. He used to sometimes get the end of the joke muddled and would get it wrong. But it was so funny just because, yeah, it was just him and it was just brilliant. So everyone would laugh as much anyway. Yeah. Don O'Connor. I hear people say things like, don't resist the resistance, or don't push or pull on thoughts. I feel like I have to really make a big effort all the time to stay in the present moment. My meditation is a constant struggle to come back again and again from distraction. Maybe that's just what I have to do for now. The present moment feels perfectly fine and peaceful, but the habit of the mind is to be distracted with anything at all the time. It makes me annoyed and frustrated that it never calms down. Do you have any advice for dealing with that? Thanks, Don. I meant to say hi, Lisa, at the start, but I sent the message instead. Hey, Don. Thanks for your question. Yeah, I think that's often the case. You know, when I first started meditating and first started asking who I was, oh, I was crazy. So I think that's often the case. What could help is to do body work, you know, to investigate the energy stuck in the body. So sometimes when you're just battling with the mind to try and stay present, it's because there's lots of buildup of resistance in the body. So, so if you've been telling yourself, I'm victim to my wife for 20 years, and if that story's been reoccurring many times, the body will begin to hold onto it. So when the wife comes along, you'll begin to clench, and you most probably didn't just begin it there. You most probably began it with your mother or your father in very young childhood, this story, and it's a continuation and exacerbation of that. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. So the body begins to hold it, and you begin to physiologically become that victim. So a good thing to do is to do body work or somatic work on the body. There's so many recommendations that I have on my reference page on my website, but you can also look it up on the internet as well. And just see what the body's holding on to, because it's like it gets stuck in the body and then it creates excessive thinking. So you feel victim to the wife, and you feel victimized by what she does, and it creates more and more pain in the heart area. And then you have this ache in your heart, like, I'm victim, nobody hears me, nobody loves me, nobody likes me. And it's like a vibration of energy in your heart area. And then that's going to create excessive story making. So the story making, rather than facing the energy that's in the heart, the story making might be like, what a beep she is, da da da, and going into like extended stories of regret, of annoyance, of anger. And then just trying to pull your mind away from that might be too much of a tidal wave. So addressing the actual energy in the body might be really helpful to calm that down. But that doesn't lead to freedom, because who would be free? That's settling down the body-mind mechanism. That's working with the story to settle down the story. And then when the story is more settled, then the mind might break easier. So there will be more access to this. But not because you did something, because you doing something is a story. I know that's really mind bending. Yeah. So so what you want to come to at the end is, who is the one that wants to stay present? And then eventually even that will go, and then there will just be presence. But it doesn't mean don't do that practice. No. Okay, next question. This is from CDM. Heart opening, tears coming for no reason, with a deep feeling of intimacy sometimes. Simply allow this and don't push it away or chase it, right? Yeah. And then it goes even deeper than that. So it's like this intimacy comes, and then there is an allowing. So there is a voice that says, okay, allow this, don't run away from it, which is really beautiful. But then it's even deeper than that. goes even further down the rabbit hole. Like, who is allowing or not allowing? Everything is allowed in who you are, always. Even if there's immense seeking, everything is allowed in who you are. This is free. This is free. Every moment is free. Life is totally empty. So this is nothing experiencing everything. And there's nothing to get here. There's nowhere to go. So all the going backwards and froing, getting, is in the mental world. Who you truly are is beyond the mental. It doesn't go into time. It doesn't allow or not allow as a story. It is absolute allowance, but not as a story. And it's empty and full. It's no thing and everything. It's right here. So who is experiencing now? Who is getting or not getting? Who's watching? Who's hearing my voice? Who's liking or not liking? Your essence is none of this. That's all in the body world, which isn't a problem. The body can feel and do anything, but then there is the identification and a belief that you are the body, and that's not true. Who you are is no thing, which is everything. Hey. I'm afraid I could miss chances in life if I don't push. Yeah. And chances come and go, and life comes and goes. And it's not about pushing or don't pushing or not pushing. It's who are you? You know, pushing often comes with, I am this person that needs to get something to be something. And who are you right now? Who is experiencing? Who is free? In this moment. Forget about pushing or don't pushing or what may come or not come. It's what is there right now? Who is hearing this? Who is experiencing this? It's total emptiness. Using consciousness to experience itself as everything. So your consciousness is a bridge to that nothing and everything. So you could say you are consciousness, but just, or the I am, but they're not as a thing, not as something to identify with. In the end, it's all dog turd. All words, all words, all words are dog turd. This is coming back to what you are right now, which is emptiness, appearing as fullness. like it's life experiencing itself. And it's so empty. The looking is so empty. The I am is so empty and it's so full. It's love. A question. I can be in the present moment, but the frustrating thing is, then I think I have to do the dishes. Not sure how to bridge that. What I is thinking that it must be the all appearing to want to do the dishes. Yeah. So it's then you're taking your thoughts personally, like thoughts are appearing from nowhere. So the one that wants to do the dishes isn't the person, unless there's identification with it. It's coming from everything, from nothing, from emptiness, from the source, wanting to do the dishes. It's just that then there is a tag on of me. And what does that make me? I'm a good girl for doing the dishes. I am loved for doing the dishes. I am bigger than everybody else for doing the dishes. So it's like the dishes want to be done for nothing, for no reason, just because the dishes need to be done. And that energy comes up, but it doesn't make you any bigger. It doesn't add to you. It's not a seeking energy that's yours, me. There is no you. So now speaking's happening, listening's happening, movement's happening, but for no one, from no one. Just the happening. Don, that was a really helpful answer. Thank you, Don. Pleasure, Don. Nathan. Oh, sorry. Try to stick to people's just initials. N, question count. I asked because did you ask a question before? Nathan. Oh, sorry, N. I asked because surely the ego won't want to destroy itself by going through this awakening process. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, I just missed lots of questions. Sorry. IH is next. When the body-mind mechanism does for brain injury and OCD and additional certain kinds of mental illness, is it possible that excessive thinking could stop or change? Anything is possible. Anything is possible. But you would like to, I would say in those situations, do look into the science of those considered disorders. I mean, our research into these types of things is not so great because it's not very financially beneficial for the pharmaceutical companies. But look into the research of it and try and find the best methods to help relax that. And then, the exploration of non-duality, like who is the thinker? And also drugs, like I'm not opposed to drugs in those situations. There's people I've worked with OCD that take medication that's so super helpful. It's not against this. Medication can't stop awakening. How is that possible? Because medication is working on the brain, is working on the person, and what's being spoken about is beyond the person. So that movement of attention is not negated by taking medication, for OCD. Some people are so prejudiced in spirituality. It's interesting because, when you explore the hippie movement and, the evolution of spirituality to the West, it's interesting how many dogmatic ideas come over from Christianity, even though they think that it's a rebellion against Christianity, like people get into the mentality that it's a rebellion. Or it's different, but these ideas are very inherent in Christianity. If you go to extreme Christianity, they're also very against science and medicine. I'm against medicine in the sense that I think that we take it when there's alternatives. But medicine in extreme situations, it's, I'm so grateful that when my dad was passing, that there was freaking morphine. But like, so with the COVID vaccine, my problem is that I didn't think that everybody needed to take it, and then this mass population taking it, and then we're wheeling it back into our water source, and then we're all drinking the water source. And then the lack of testing on it, and then the mass testing on animals. It comes from a very dark place, medication as well. So this is my hesitancy, is that we pop pills in our society, for wrong reasons, when there's often a natural solution. But, and also I really dislike what we do to animals. It's just, that's so dark, what we do to animals. And we have to acknowledge that, it's the same if you're going to buy clothes from sweatshops, you've got to acknowledge that that's what you've done. Like, it's so dark what we do to animals in our society. So, but, there's always exceptions. And I'm so grateful in certain instances of certain medical practices. It's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but you get into these spiritual communities, and it's like, if you take any form of medicine, you are some type of anti-spiritual person that like is really bad and doesn't know anything about spirituality, and that's the same as Christianity. Isn't that funny? So the hippies think, and New Age people and non-dual people think that they're being so inventive with being against medicine. But it's exactly the same as what extreme Christianity, extreme Islam, extreme Judaism do. They all are anti it, and then they'll all proselytize, pontificate about, if you truly align with God, then you'll be free from it. Which I understand in one way, like it can be really healing, falling away of the self, but our bodies have to rot. They have to transform into something else. So it doesn't really make sense, all of that perspective. So if you really align with God, then you're just going to live forever, which is also what happens in a lot of spiritual communities. They believe that their master will live forever, and then when they die, then they're like, oh, well, that's because he's living forever, and all these types of things. It's all beliefs and ideas. And none of our beliefs or ideas are true. And it's often judgments and fears and seeking patterns to be somebody that's gone unrecognized. To be really extreme about something comforts you in a way. Like, to see things in black and white can be really comforting for the person, rather than life is like, doesn't make sense. Law of attraction sometimes fits and sometimes doesn't. Taking medicine sometimes fits and sometimes doesn't. It's awful what we do to animals, but when I see people, deeply in pain, I'm so grateful for the painkillers to help them. Life is just so uncontainable and wild. And we're always trying to put it into brackets to save our ego, to save ourselves. Really, John, non-duality is really recognition that the only freedom is beyond any ideas. So it's any idea that you hold tightly to is most probably some form of seeking, including any new age spiritual non-dual ideas. Okay, more questions. N. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for this opportunity. My question is, if there is no one really here, who is the one that is looking to awaken? N says, I ask because surely the ego won't want to destroy itself by going through this awakening process. Yeah, thanks, N. That's a really great question. Who is it that wants to awaken? So, I mean, this is like one of those endless pieces of string, you know, when you're trying to unravel string. Yeah, that doesn't quite communicate that analogy. I meant like, you know, when a lump of ball gets really entangled, like to try to find the answer to that is or try, you know, when you've got a jumper on, that's a better analogy. You've got a jumper on and you start pulling a thread and then the whole jumper eventually falls to bits. So the Buddha used to say, you know, when I was practicing Buddhism, in order to get into this, you have to really realize that life is suffering. And my explanation of this is recognizing that nothing in the flow of life works. And when that is really realized, then there is a spiritual pursuit to go inwards. And that is done by ego and thought. And it becomes like the Pac-Man, or it becomes like pulling a thread to your jumper. It like eats itself. So if you realize that no pleasure, so what you've been sold by life, the no pleasure is going to be your freedom. And that can sometimes come with like tastes of awakening. Like, so there's like been big gaps that's happened and awakenings that have happened. So there's a knowing of something else. And then this recognition that you can't, that it's not going to work if you get the massive house, or if you move house 10 times, or if you move to Thailand, or if you lose weight or get children. Like none of these things are going to work. They're relative. It'll make you feel better if you're really obese and having problems, you know, breathing and doing things. That like losing weight will make you feel better, but it never ends. It's like an endless cycle of pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain. Boom, 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 like ping pong. Boom, 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 boom. And at some point there is an exhaustion of that. So in more traditionally in Hinduism and Buddhism, it would be like you finally are ripe at a life, you know, because they believe in life after life, like rebirth or reincarnation. And I don't believe it in the way they do, but I believe it as a succession of habits and conditions. So particular habits and conditions form in a human where they get to that point. Like I got to that point quite early in life where I realized my life is like a perfect cacophony of events, which led me to realize at quite an early age that it never was going to work out in the story. And thank God I worked that out, but it came from suffering. And it came from also having awakenings. So there was these mini awakenings, which I didn't know were awakenings, where I tasted something else and I resonated with something else, where I was touching on something else that was beyond pleasure and pain. So the Buddha's Four Noble Truths, and the first one is to recognize that life is suffering. Yeah. And then, yes, the person becomes like, you know, Pac-Man, he's like, and then when he gets hit by the ghost, he eats himself, he expands, and then the hand goes backwards and he disappears. So it's like the person recognizes that, and then it begins to question itself, and then it undoes itself, and it's nobody's doing. So when you pull the thread to the jumper and the jumper disappears, there's no jumper. There was never a jumper. There was never a person. There was never a person that wanted to wake up. Who you are is what is, which is this. Oh. Excuse me, I have to relieve myself now. I will be back. Must turn off the microphone. Very important. Yeah. Yes. So, question. JR. Hi, Lisa. There's the still silent nothingness of who I am that feels like it's a point somewhere outside of my body and somewhere outside of time and space. But there's also the sense of I am presence that feels intimate, spacious, and inclusive of my body and everything. Are they the same? I am. The silent stillness sometimes becomes very strong and it feels like it's invading my body, so it feels like it's something different. Also, I can see it in your eyes and feel it during your talk. So let me read that question again. Hi, Lisa. There's the still silent nothingness of who I am. It feels like it's a point somewhere outside of my body and somewhere outside of time and space. But there's also the sense of I am present that feels intimate, spacious, and inclusive of my body and everything. Are they the same I am? The silent stillness sometimes becomes very strong and it feels like it's invading my body, so it feels like it's something different. Yeah, it's really hard for me to comment on experience because I can't really know what you're talking about. On your personal experience, no matter how much you describe it to me. And then if I comment on it, I might be commenting on a different thing. So yeah, this is the thing, when you begin to get into this subject, it's the unknown voyage. So there is an exploration into this world which you cannot find in words and you cannot discern or think about. So my best advice would be to carry on exploring. It's a solo voyage that's not solo because there's only one, but it's seems, yeah, like there's many. It seems like there's someone there that needs to know or comes and needs to know and then doesn't. Yeah, thank you for your question. LM. Hi, Lisa. Religion says force yourself to not eat animals, take drugs, drink alcohol, lie, cheat. But isn't it better to follow a spiritual path that makes you not want those things? I don't know if Christianity forces you not to eat animals or drink wine. I think that this is all human related. which is all on the character. And all of these things can make the character settle down and stop being so crazy and having such excessive thinking. But you have to come back to who and see that this recognition is beyond the person. It's going back to that which is experiencing the person that drinks or eats animals or doesn't. And who knows what's right? Maybe the rightest thing is to eat animals or to take drugs. It's all in God's hands or life's hands. That right and wrong is all illusion. That doesn't mean that I'm supporting being abusive to each other. It's just an illusion. You know, come back to yourself, investigate yourself. Nice. So maybe now we do some energetic communication where I blast your mind with expansive consciousness. That is a joke. Or is it? I just feel like doing some silent sitting. Now, maybe it's the coming to the end. Just see if there's any more questions. Yeah. So next week there will be a talk, but at 4:30 French time, and I will go back to using Zoom so we don't have the problem that we had today. Yeah. Just for all those logging off now, as soon as the silent sitting, they're like, that's got nothing to do with non-duality, I'm out of here. That's just a dualistic people. Yeah, so those logging out. And also remember to like the video if you want to support the channel. You just have to put your hand, you go like that, and then that's liked. You just like as if you're thinking glasses, like boost, cheers. Okay, thank you, everybody. I really wish you everything. Every goddamn thing. Thank you.